hierarchical world of deference and obedience. Although they dared to challenge authority for themselves, they did so for specific and compelling political reasons. They did not see their defiance of the king as an invitation to open the floodgates to challenges based on race or gender. Although new ideas about human abilities and capacities, and about the organization of society, had begun to appear, most 18th century Americans grew up in a world of fixed truths about the capacities of men and women, the character of rich and poor, the inherent virtues and shortcomings of white and black. The revolution disturbed, and occasionally reconfigured, but it did not fully dislodge the power of those truths. No sweeping social revolution followed in the wake of the political revolution. Indeed, like women and men after many wars, white Americans seemed more eager to return to the life that had been disrupted than to create a new one. Fulfilling the revolution's promise of equality became the task of the centuries that followed. It is important to tell the story of the revolution and its aftermath with the complexity it deserves. But it is also important to tell it as a story of both women and men. Too often, the war for independence is portrayed as an exclusively male event. Its cast of characters, such familiar figures as Commander-in-Chief George Washington, the swamp fox Francis Marion, the Virginia orator Patrick Henry, the schoolteacher-turned-spy Nathan Hale, and the midnight rider Paul Revere. Only 3 women seem to be readily associated with the war for independence. Abigail Adams, who it is said requested that her husband and his fellow lawmakers of the new nation remember the ladies and let them vote. Betsy Ross, who sewed the first United States flag, and Molly Pitcher, who carried water to the thirsty men defending Fort Monmouth. Alas, in all 3 cases, historical memory is faulty. Abigail Adams was not an early suffragist, demanding that John and the Congress grant women the right to vote. She was a dutiful, if politically informed wife, asking privately if her husband could do something to reform the horrendous laws of coverture that deprived married women of their property rights. Betsy Ross was not a humble seamstress, but a skilled upholsterer, an artisan with a thriving trade. And although she may have sewn a flag, there is little evidence to prove it. Finally, Molly Pitcher simply did not exist. Like Rosie the Riveter of World War II fame, Molly Pitcher was a name given to the many women who carried water to cool down the cannons so that soldiers could reload and fire them again. The gender amnesia that surrounds the American Revolution did not always exist. During the war, and in the early decades of the new nation, poets, pamphleteers, essayists, novelists, and many public leaders praised women for their participation in the struggle for independence, even as they debated what new demands, if any, the young republic ought to make upon female patriots, and what demands these women could make on the new nation. The experiences of this revolutionary generation of women were kept fresh in the minds of later generations by women like Elizabeth Elliot, whose 3-volume Women of the American Revolution, published in 1848 to 1850, was based on letters, diaries, and recollections passed down from mother to daughter to granddaughters. Because of Elliot, antebellum women and men could thrill to stories of women who led boycotts against British goods, raised funds for the Continental Army, nursed wounded soldiers, spied on the enemy, and wrote propaganda to advance the patriot cause. But if Elliot's work honored the women of the Revolution, it also transformed them, for her biographical sketches are premised on the 19th century belief in woman's inherent moral superiority, her natural piety, her maternal instincts, and her domestic role as the mistress of a haven from the heartless world of early industrializing society. In the romantic prose of her own era, Elliot recast 18th century icons, such as Abigail Adams and Martha Washington, as models of a gentility and domesticity familiar to her readers. Abigail and Martha might not have recognized themselves, or each other, from the pages of Elliot's books, but they would have